Here is a September 2024 election update for Trump versus Harris on the path to 270 electoral votes. And as we enter September of 2024, just 2 months away from the highly anticipated November election, it's time to update our election prediction between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. We'll explore where each candidate stands on their path to securing the crucial 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. This election is shaping up to be one of the most competitive in modern history, and with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. officially out of the race and now endorsing Trump, the dynamics have shifted significantly. And on top of that, the Democratic National Convention and the Republican National Convention have both concluded, and it's clear that Kamala Harris hasn't received any significant convention bump at all. And now the question is, can she regain the momentum in the final stretch? Let's dive into the electoral map, starting with the solid states for both candidates. We'll begin by filling in the solid states. Those where either Harris or Trump is expected to win by at least 15 percentage points. These states form the foundation of each candidate's electoral strategy and provide a strong base from which they can build their path to 270 electoral votes. Starting on the West Coast, Kamala Harris is expected to secure Washington and California, two states with a strong Democratic history. Washington, with its 12 electoral votes, remains solidly blue thanks to its progressive and urban centers in Seattle and surrounding areas. California, which is the largest with its 54 electoral votes, is a cornerstone of Harris's campaign. Despite minor shifts in certain regions, California remains overwhelmingly Democratic, particularly in its coastal cities. However, unlike previous cycles, Oregon is not solidly blue. While it's still expected to go to Harris, the state is more competitive than its neighbors due to a close governor's race in 2022 that saw a single digit margin. Oregon's political landscape has been influenced by increasing polarization between urban and rural areas, making it a state to watch. Harris also has a solid support in Hawaii, with its diverse population and strong Democratic lean, and in the Northeast, where Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island are firmly in her column. These states are known for their progressive policies and liberal voting bases, and they are expected to deliver strong margins for Harris. Maryland, the District of Columbia, and the 1st District of Maine also remain solidly blue, rounding out her strongholds in the Northeast. And although these states give Harris a base of 109 electoral votes, which is a strong start, but still far from 270 needed to secure the presidency for the 2024 election. Now let's fill in the Donald Trump solid states, which he has a way more extensive list of solid states reflecting his strong support in rural areas and in conservative regions of the country. These states include Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and nearly all of Nebraska, except for the competitive 2nd District. And Kansas, Trump's appeal in these areas is rooted from his populist measures and conservative policies, which resonate with voters in these predominantly rural states. In the South, Trump is expected to easily win states like Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Kentucky, where his stance on issues like immigration, religious freedom, and gun rights align closely with the values of voters. South Carolina, with its strong evangelical population, is another solid red state for Trump. Moving to the Midwest, Indiana and Missouri are firmly in Trump's column, as are West Virginia and Arkansas. These states, with their predominantly white working class populations, have consistently voted for Trump in previous elections and are expected to do so again in 2024. And over there in Alaska, while Trump has not won by a solid margin in recent elections, the state's independent streak means that while it will likely go red, the margin may be closer than other Republican strongholds. The 2nd District of Maine, which covers the rural and conservative northern part of the state, is also expected to remain in Trump's column. With these solid states filled in, Trump starts with 126 electoral votes, giving him an early lead over Harris, who has 109. However, both candidates have likely states that will help them close the gap as we move forward. Next, we'll look at the likely states. These are states where each candidate has a strong chance of winning, with margins expected to be between 7 to 15 points. These states are more competitive than the solid states, but still show a clear advantage for one candidate. Now, let's go to the likely blue states for Kamala Harris. In Oregon, Harris remains the favorite despite the state's slightly more conservative lean compared to its neighbors, such as Washington and California. Oregon's political landscape has been shaped by increasing polarization, particularly between urban areas like Portland and more rural eastern regions. While Harris is expected to win, the margin may be closer than in previous elections, reflecting the state's shifting dynamics. In Colorado, a state that Biden has won by nearly 14 points in 2020, Harris is also expected to win by a similar margin, possibly around 8 to 9 points. Colorado's electorate is diverse, with a growing Hispanic population and a significant number of young, educated voters in urban areas like Denver and Boulder. However, the state's libertarian streak, particularly in more rural areas, make it slightly less secure than before. Minnesota, the home state of Harris's running mate, Governor Tim Walz, is another likely blue state. And if Biden had remained in the race, Minnesota could have been more competitive, possibly even tilting Republican. However, with Walz on the ticket, Harris has somewhat of an advantage. With this state being a Republican tilt state when Biden was in the race, it means that the state can just easily flip to Trump as well. And in 2016, Trump came within 2 points of flipping Minnesota. But the state has since trended slightly more Democratic. Particularly with Walz's popularity, Harris is expected to win Minnesota by around 7 to 8 points. Though it remains a state to watch as the Rust Belt continues to shift right, I would keep an eye out for this state as it's probably one of the most crucial states for Kamala Harris to win. And I'm telling you right now, guys, if Harris loses this state, then this presidential race is over. And Trump is only losing by 2 points. So watch out. Illinois, with its 19 electoral votes, is also likely to go to Harris, but the margin may be just under 15 points. The state has been gradually shifting to the right, particularly in its rural areas, but Chicago and its suburbs remain strong Democratic bastions. Harris's margins of victory in Illinois will likely reflect the growing urban rural divide within the state. Now, in the Northeast, Harris is expected to secure New York, but for the first time since 1988, it may not be by a solid margin. The state's political landscape has been complicated by local issues, including the unpopularity of Governor Kathy Hochul and the resignation of Andrew Cuomo amid the scandal. Harris will likely win New York by a likely margin, but it's a state that Democrats can no longer take for granted. And neighboring New Jersey and Joe Biden's home state of Delaware are also likely in the blue column. New Jersey has been plagued by scandals, including the resignation of Senator Bob Menendez amid the bribery charges, which could dampen the Democratic enthusiasm. Delaware, while historically blue, is simply not as some of its neighbors like Maryland and Connecticut are in terms of their liberal outlook, making it a likely but not solid state for Harris. With these likely states filled in, Harris crosses the 200 electoral vote threshold, reaching 211. However, she still has a long way to go, and Trump's likely states are just as critical. Let's move on to Trump's likely states. Trump's likely states include Iowa and Ohio, both of these which have undergone significant shifts to the right in recent years. Once considered battlegrounds, these states are now firmly in the Republican column. In 2012, Obama won both Iowa and Ohio, but by 2016, Trump had flipped them by nearly double digit margins. And in 2024, Trump is expected to win these states by at least 10 points. Though crossing the 15-point threshold may be challenging, Iowa's shift to the right has been driven by its predominantly rural population and economic concerns related to agriculture. Ohio's realignment reflects broader demographic and economic changes, including the decline of industrial jobs in the Rust Belt. Both states are crucial for Trump's path to victory and are expected to deliver strong margins for him. Now, with Texas, which has 40 electoral votes, remains a critical state for Trump. Despite the state's gradual shift leftward due to changing demographics and urban growth, it remains firmly in the Republican column. Trump won Texas by 9 points in 2016 and by 6 points in 2020. In 2024, he is expected to win by around 10 points. And though the state's growing diversity means it remains a potential battleground in the future elections. Now, Florida, which has 30 electoral votes, has transformed from a swing state to a likely state under Trump. And in 2016, Trump won Florida by 1.2 points, and in 2020, he expanded his margin to 3.4 points. The state's political landscape has shifted significantly, with the increasing support for the GOP among Hispanic voters, particularly Cuban Americans in South Florida. Trump is expected to win Florida by a margin of 7 to 10 points, solidifying it as a key part of his electoral strategy. With these likely states filled in, Trump retakes the lead with 219 electoral votes. The race is now incredibly close, and the remaining states will determine the outcome. And guys, before we go to any further in the video, please subscribe to the channel. It allows us to get you guys the most up-to-date content almost every other day. And thank you guys. And now let's move on to some of the lean states, the true battlegrounds, where each candidate has a slight advantage, but the margins are expected to be closer, between 2 to 7 points. These are states where upsets can happen and where the campaigns will focus their final efforts. Now, let's go to the lean states for Harris. In New Mexico, with its 5 electoral votes, is a lean state for Harris. The state has Hispanic majority electorate, but as Hispanic voters continue to shift away from the Democratic Party, New Mexico has become more competitive. And in 2020, Biden won New Mexico by 11 points, but Harris is expected to win by a small margin, possibly around 6 to 7 points. The state's rural areas, particularly in the southeast, are increasingly conservative, making it a battleground worth watching. In New Hampshire, with its 4 electoral votes, remains a crucial battleground, and in 2016, Trump came within half a percentage point of winning the state. And while Biden won it by 7 points in 2020, the margin is expected to be closer in 2024. Harris is likely to win New Hampshire by around 2 to 4 points, but it remains one of the most competitive states on the map. Maine's 2 at large electoral votes are also in the lean blue category. In 2016, Clinton won Maine by just over 2 points, while Biden expanded that margin to nearly 10 points in 2020. Harris is expected to fall somewhere in between, with the state remaining competitive but likely to go blue. The 2nd District of Nebraska, which Biden won by 7 points, is another lean blue state. Though Harris is expected to perform slightly worse here, let's see how it all turns out. And in Virginia, which is a state in transition, with its 13 electoral votes, is the final lean blue state. The state has moved significantly to the left over the past decade, but in recent years we have seen a slight shift back to the right, particularly with the election of Governor Glenn Youngkin in 2021. Harris is expected to win Virginia by just over 2 points, making it a competitive state that once still leans blue. And if Biden stayed in the race, Virginia could have been a more significant battleground. But with Harris as the nominee, Democrats maintain a slight edge. And with these blue states filled in, Harris reaches 241 electoral votes, still trailing Trump, who is now just 19 electoral votes away from retaking the White House. North Carolina, with its 16 electoral votes, is a lean red state for Trump. And in both 2016 and 2020, Trump won North Carolina despite polling that showed Biden ahead in 2020. The state's rural and suburban areas are firmly in Trump's column, and while Harris will need to focus on urban areas like Charlotte and Raleigh, the state is expected to remain red by a margin of around 3 to 4 points. And in Georgia, with the 16 electoral votes, is another critical battleground. While Biden narrowly won Georgia in 2020, which was a huge anomaly for them to vote blue, the state remains fundamentally conservative. And Trump's appeal in rural areas and smaller cities, coupled with the re-election of Republican Governor Brian Kemp in 2022, give him a slight edge. Georgia is expected to be lean red, with Trump winning by a margin similar to his 2016 victory. And now we move on to Arizona, a Sun Belt battleground. Arizona, which has 11 electoral votes, is also lean red. Trump won Arizona by 4 points in 2016, but narrowly lost it in 2020. And with Harris as a nominee, given Biden's stronger performance 4 years ago, Trump is favored to take back Arizona by a margin of 2 to 4 points. In the state's growing suburban areas, particularly in Maricopa County, make it a competitive battleground. But Trump's support in rural areas gives him the edge. Now, if we go to Nevada, with its 6 electoral votes, is a final lean red state. Despite Trump never having won Nevada, the state is expected to flip in 2024. And in 2022, Republican Joe Lombardo's defeated the incumbent Democratic governor, signaling a shift in the state's political landscape. And Harris will need to focus on turnout in Las Vegas and Reno. But Trump's appeal in rural areas is expected to carry him to the victory in Nevada. With these lean red states filled in, Trump is now at 268 electoral votes, just 2 away from presidency. This leaves us with the final three states: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, the same states that decided the 2016 and 2020 elections. Now, the tilt states, which are the final deciders. These three states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, are the true battlegrounds that will decide the 2024 election. Each has a history of close elections, and they remain the most competitive states on the map. Wisconsin, with its 10 electoral votes, is likely to be the first of three to flip back to Trump. The state is the most conservative of the blue wall states and had consistently been a key battleground in recent elections. Trump won Wisconsin in 2016, and while Biden narrowly flipped it back in 2020, the state's rural and working class voters are expected to swing back to Trump in 2024. Wisconsin is likely to be a tilt red state, giving the Trump the final votes needed to secure the presidency. Pennsylvania, which is the keystone state for this election, has 19 electoral votes. And if Harris loses Pennsylvania, her path to 270 becomes nearly impossible. Trump won Pennsylvania in 2016 and is slightly favored to win it again in 2024, with a 51% chance, according to the betting markets on Polymarket. The state's diverse electorate, including the suburban areas around Philadelphia and working class regions in the Rust Belt, make it a true battleground. Pennsylvania is expected to be a tilt red state, further solidifying Trump's lead. And then Michigan, which is the last hope for Harris. It has 15 electoral votes. Michigan has been one of the most competitive states in both 2016 and 2020. And in 2024, Harris is given a very slight edge in Michigan, making it a tilt blue state. The Michigan is the most liberal of the blue wall states, and Harris's ability to mobilize voters in Detroit and the surrounding suburbs will be a key to her success. However, even with Michigan in her column, Harris's falls short of the 270 votes needed to win. And in conclusion, as of September 2024, with 2 months to go until the election, Donald Trump is in a stronger position than he has been at any point in either 2016 or 2020, with 297 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 241. Trump is a clear favorite to retake the White House. However, the race is far from over, and both campaigns will be focused on mobilizing their base and winning over undecided voters in the final stretch. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Let me know down below in the comment section who you think is going to win this election and why. I just love to hear different opinions. Other than that, guys, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps and supports us to bring you guys the most up-to-date information day to day. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and have a beautiful and blessed day.